Welcome to You're Not Alone. The podcast brings you real stories of strength, hope, and resilience. Our guests are real people just like you who have faced losses, anxieties, and life obstacles but emerged stronger. Today's guest is Dr. Sally Nazari, a licensed psychologist who turned personal loss into a healing mission. After losing a loved one, she shifted to a psychospiritual approach, blending therapy, energy work, and soul level healing. This episode is all about grief, growth, and mind body soul alignment. Let's dive in. My name is Victoria Vita. I'm a mindset mentor, Reiki master, and a sound healer. I'm also the CEO and founder of Self Awesomeness and the host of this podcast. And today's guest is Dr. Sally Nazari, is a licensed psychologist who turned personal loss into a powerful mission of healing. After losing a loved one, she shifted from traditional therapy to an integrative psychospiritual approach, blending clinical psychology, spirituality, yoga, meditation, and energy healing. She now helps others reconnect with themselves through mind, body, and soul alignment, offering tools for emotional healing and spiritual growth. In this episode, we'll talk about grief, growth, and how holistic support can guide us through even the toughest seasons of our life. Thank you, Sally, for being on today's podcast.
Hello.
I know when we talked, you said that you have experienced loss in your own way. How can you share your experience and how that shaped your path?
Thank you. Well, first of all, Victoria, I want to say just how excited I am to be talking today. And I know it's been just so exciting for me to think about like the mission that you have with your podcast and the resources, not just practical resources that are available. So I just want to thank you with that.
Thank
And
you.
also just that question too. I think you described it beautifully. I think we often think of loss as something where we, well, lose something, right? But it doesn't really stop there. It becomes an opportunity for us. And it actually was just the anniversary of passing for me a
Oh,
couple of
I'm
days
sorry.
ago as well. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And typically it's often been a period of like sadness for me, right? It's sort of a very paining day or as we're leading up to the day. But this year it felt very different for me.
Hmm.
And it was the reflection on how things have transformed and shifted for me. Of course, the loss is there. Of course, the love that we share with those that we lose,
Hmm.
uh, that doesn't end, but it's not the only thing that's there, right? And so for me, it was very personal after terminal illness and passing of someone I loved deeply, someone who was a source of confidence and encouragement and support throughout my life, throughout our connection, and just seeing the end of life approaching with such presence, such grace, made
Hmm.
me see that we often live disconnected from those things that do matter most.
Hmm.
And that
Agree.
experience really
Hmm.
made it clear to me we can't really afford to wait to be aligned with ourselves going through life. It has an
Yes.
impact on our own experiences, but also the way that we touch others. Um, and one of the biggest lessons I learned from this connection and relationship was self-love, just sort of
Mm.
the
Hmm.
embodiment and model for confidence, unapologetic, faith in yourself and self-love and self-worth. It helped me to step into that. And so, during that period of illness, um, I really spent a lot of time, we knew it was terminal, but terminal doesn't mean you have to be miserable every minute going through, right?
Yes.
There's comfort, there's support. I spent a lot of time learning more about approaches that could be alleviating or just slow the
Mm-hmm.
progression in the meantime. And I'd always had an interest in Reiki, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which I discovered going through graduate school, looking for my
Oh,
own
really?
stress relief. Absolutely. That was very serendipitous. And at the time, I didn't make the connection, but I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for things that would help me manage stress a little bit more
Yes.
comfortably. It would also be my self-care place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I encountered Reiki, and it was wonderful. And it was very helpful in that regard. But it also became a wonderful tool during this period of illness.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I certified and I got attuned. And it was such a comfort and such a beautiful practice to integrate. But
Yes.
it sort of helped me realize that much of what includes healing isn't just a protocol or a modality.
Mm-hmm.
It goes so much further than that. um,
Yes.
and I think also our own courage to reach for healing and to reach for the supports, right? Because sometimes the work is, I get to have this, I get to be supported, and that's an
Yes.
expression of self-love. So,
Mm-hmm.
going through that process and that journey, and then also, um, the experience with passing, and the grief, where it, even
Yes.
as I was expecting, I was not prepared, and just how
Mm-hmm.
beautifully held I was,
Yes.
together, but then also other loved ones. It felt like it was a time of opening in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it felt like I was going through heart surgery without anesthesia, but
Oh, oh.
but in many ways, there were other things that were holding me together, that were helping me feel held in love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I wanted to kind of lean into a little bit of helping others feel connected to love and self love. And self love isn't always soft, it's not always
Oh,
pretty.
yes.
And you
It
can
is
certainly
not.
attest to that.
Yes, definitely.
But it's always powerful, right? And there are these
Yeah.
myths that it's a spa day, but it's
Mm-mm.
innovative, and it's almost revolutionary in the way of how we had been operating till that point. And really, I see it as being about coming home to ourselves, um, especially when we'd rather run.
Yes. Oh, yes. This is what a lot of people do, right? We just try to run away from ourselves. And sometimes I feel like it's so scary to look inside and see what is inside. Like, oh my goodness, what if I don't like it, right?
Yes.
But it's so powerful to know who you are, different aspects of you, right? The good and bad. I'm doing quotes, right? It's just accepting who you are, because we're not all I call, like, we're not like you, our life is not like unicorn life, right? So there are different things happening in our lives. And as you mentioned that, I feel when we face loss and death, it changes our life approach, and it makes us feel sometimes more alive. So we look at people who passed away, the way they handled it, because they're the ones who were going through the process, right? But the way they handled it, it kind of gave us courage to live and continue going through our healing process more, I think, more in depth with ourselves, and experience that self-love.
I think that says it so beautifully. And I love that observation here of, just showing up and living and being present with our experiences. It has such a powerful ripple effect.
Yes.
We don't have to go and move a mountain in order to have impact. And sometimes the greatest impact is just being with ourselves and being at peace. And I loved your word, accepting,
Yes.
ourselves. You know, I
Yeah.
often, talking with clients, we talk about the word accept, and there's often this mindset that it means approval or agreement with
Hmm.
a situation. All it means, or the way that something is, I should say, all it means is I'm acknowledging that what's here is here.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so leaning into who we are and loving that, accepting that, good and
Hmm.
bad, the things we like, the things we would prefer were different, or things that we're working towards, there's such a profound experience of that, and sort of an opening for ourselves. I think you described that beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do believe that you mentioned that the loss gave you an opportunity, and terminal illness of a loved one. It's gave you an opportunity to look at life differently too, right?
Hmm.
So, and
Yes.
as you said, it's a ripple effect because I feel like when we share our experience, it impacts people. And sometimes loss, it's not necessarily can be death itself, but it can be losing, and in relationship for some people, it can be very traumatizing. And for some people, losing a job can be very traumatizing. And they go through period of grief too. But I feel like sometimes society tells us, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine," and we pretend to say, "Yes, I'm okay. Yeah, yeah, don't worry, I'm okay." Yeah, and I think allowing yourself to grieve, it's something that a lot of people are afraid to do when there is a loss, because if I grieve, I'm weak and I don't want to be weak. But if you allow yourself to go through those emotions and experience it, I think this is what actually opens up a lot of opportunities and doors to a better life and a happier life, because you accept those feelings and you let them be and let them live through you and within you.
So spot on with that.
Mhm.
It's not just losses through passing, and it's not just this one finite time. Victoria, you're so on target with that. And I think it's also a fear of being judged. Like, is it okay that I'm
Yes.
feeling these things, right? I
Yeah.
feel weak feeling these things, but then everyone else is going to see. Um,
Yes.
and so often we just sort of push those feelings away, or we throw ourselves into different aspects of our lives, or we just sort of rush ourselves through, right?
Yes.
Because it's like,
Like, what?
okay, I want to be done with this already. I want to be on
Yes.
the other side. Um, and yet we would never do that to someone that we care about,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking at my son because when he lost his dad, I wanted him to feel comfortable to talk about it. And we still talk about his dad in present tense, helping him and showing him how we can live and how we can grieve. It helped him to go through his loss too. And it was amazing to see how it impacted him and the way now he looks at life. We were watching a movie, and it was one girl, she's like, "Oh, my mom is going to die. What am I going to do without her?" And he's like, "You'll just learn to live without her, but be happy."
oh,
I was like, "Oh my goodness." And he was 10 when he said that. And I think like so we through us we help other people to heal as well through our experience, even our emotions and sadness. We help other people to see that we're all humans, right? And we all allow ourselves to feel what we feel, not running away from our feelings.
absolutely. And what a beautiful, just such a beautiful story about your son, and especially that, the movie. It's in our grief, I think, that we both feel most alone and most connected. But it's about allowing ourselves to feel that,
Yes.
and
Yes.
what a beautiful, beautiful space to really kind of meet ourselves with compassion enough to allow that, right? Because it
Hmm.
doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel um, right or okay. And so
Yes.
often there's this mindset of, if I let myself have this, it means I am okay with this loss.
Yes. Yes.
And again, acceptance has nothing to do with approval.
Yeah.
It's just sort of acknowledging that this
Hmm.
is where things are. And it's also how we start to feel more connected, more anchored. And look at the connection that your son has now with this other deeper part of himself and life. And even in a
Yeah.
movie, right? If had that been, a classmate or a friend, how
Yeah.
treasured a support he would be with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think he learned his way maybe to grieve, and he had few breakdowns on his way through grief. But it was amazing. It was beautiful, and he cried, and we felt nice, and he felt good. I cried too, but it actually helped us to connect. I think, and to feel alive. Yeah. So he realized that life goes on, and we live our life now, and we choose how we want to live it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to say you set that tone as well, right? By just, creating the room and space to talk about how he was experiencing things, how you were experiencing things,
Hmm.
how you were navigating your grief. And there's that emotional safety, right? That
Yeah.
allowed you to kind of like, let's go there. And
Yes.
it's in those ways that we teach ourselves and we teach others that we can go there and still come back from it. We don't
Mhm.
get stuck in just that pain.
Yes, yes. And I think for a lot of people, as you said, we go through grief alone because people around us who have never experienced this, they
Mhm.
feel uncomfortable talking about it. So I was like, oh, that's interesting because what I noticed, like after everything happened, I was getting a lot of text messages. How's everything? How's everything? But then it just faded away. Nobody is actually asking a question. How am I doing? How my son is doing? It's kind of really faded away because people are so afraid to talk about it and ask questions. And I think this is what makes people feel really alone in their journey because grief is not only the ceremony that you have. It's way more than that, and it takes longer period of time to heal and grieve and go through emotions and learn to live without that person in our lives.
Absolutely. It has its evolutions,
Yeah.
and it becomes a part of our life, just not always in the same way. And, I think I do remember very clearly a couple of people said to me, "Oh, well, I didn't want to remind you." I'm like, "Do you think I forgot?" And and I can
Yes.
see the well intention of
Hmm.
that, right? There was sort of this wish to be kind and caring, but that was not the way. Um,
Yes.
and very much I'm reminded as you're sharing, things would just kind of fade away where
Yeah.
people weren't really sure what to say to you or how to speak with
Yes.
you or how to even, be around you.
Yeah.
So, I think it can feel very isolating and alone in that way. But again, it's part of where as we lean into those growth opportunities, those
Hmm.
emotion spaces with it, meet ourselves with compassion and love, it starts to show other people how
Yes.
they can be supportive,
Hmm.
right? Because part of
Yes.
what I hear in that is I want to do what's helpful, I just don't know what that is.
Yes.
um, and I think especially in the kinds of contexts that we referenced earlier, we were kind of mentioning grief doesn't just have to be the passing of a person we loved.
Hmm.
We also experienced it in some of these other ways. Well, not everyone knows how to navigate those.
Yes.
So it can become an opportunity of learning more of ourselves, learning more
Hmm.
about ourselves, and just deepening some of the other connections in our lives. And you gave a beautiful example that you and your son, you kind of connected together. And
Yeah.
yeah, there were tears, but you came back from it. There were moments where it felt hard, but you came back together. Um,
Yeah.
and just because it's hard or it doesn't feel good every second doesn't mean there isn't a beautiful unfolding happening,
Hmm.
or that you'll stay there from
Yes.
here on in.
Yeah. You learn to reconnect, really reconnect with yourself. And as you said, we feel disconnected with what matters the most until it
Yes.
hits us. And when it Sometimes it hits us different ways, but when we feel that we were disconnected and start looking for that connection within ourselves, I think it's what gives us calmness and peace. And as we said, live through different emotions that we may have throughout our life, pretty much, not only grief, period.
Beautifully
Yeah.
said, right? It kind of asks of us to show up for ourselves in a very
Mm-hmm.
different way. And with that anchor into ourselves is how we can more deeply anchor into, root into, and connect with others, whether it's other people, whether it's with other
Yeah.
experiences in our lives, or even just kind of a deeper mission or a courage, to kind of show up a little bit differently. And I think that
Yeah.
sort of brings us full circle, with your question earlier. Going through this journey kind of gave me
Mm-hmm.
more of a courage to do something that wasn't always comfortable, that was maybe a little bit different, and to kind of still stay connected to
Mm-hmm.
myself through that. It was sort of learning to ask that question of, what does it look like to be on my own side today? And then
Yes.
following through with that, even if it's uncomfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
just sort of holding that discomfort, until there was a little bit of that shift and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that looks muddy, right? But that's okay. Things are
It's okay too. Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
the progression of things, the movement of things, it's
Mm-hmm.
not always going to be, that clear, clean, neat.
Mm-hmm.
But we build the resilience and we start to see, we give
Yeah.
ourselves reference points that we see that we have the stamina, the courage, the wherewithal, and the resilience to navigate through.
Do you remember the moment that made you pivot towards your integrative work and approach when you work with your clients?
I love that question. Thank you. It actually was, I think, I was getting a little bit of a nudge from the universe. Because it had been a thought, it had been something I'd been wanting to do. And I was in some small pockets, in sort of the safer ways, if you will. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was actually outreached by someone in a well known teacher in the spiritual community. I'd taken some classes, and she'd actually reached out to me directly, um,
Oh,
and
wow.
and asked me, yeah, and I was like, okay, the universe, got it. Um,
Thanks.
thank you, thank you in many ways with that, and it left me feeling, like I had to get out of my own way, right? I couldn't just kind of
Mm-hmm.
talk myself out of it. But it sort of made me feel much more comfortable that, it's not just something I'm imagining, and I'm not just sort of in my ego, if you will, and like, yay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do this exciting thing. No, there is a need here, and there is something bigger
Yes.
than myself, asking this of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderful transformation for me, in the sense that, here is someone I trusted as well, as a teacher I felt really connected to, and a teacher that, had done some beautiful work, also courageous enough to be innovative, in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
her, uh, career throughout. And the trust was there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
so
that's beautiful.
the fact that I was sort of invited felt
Yeah.
like, okay, there's something to this.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
I'm not just kind of having fun with things. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's a need here, and there's a gap, that's being bridged. And it
Mm-hmm.
was wonderful to collaborate with her through it. And it also opened the door for me to then do some mentoring, with her, and go
Mm-hmm.
on
Oh,
to deepen, some of my experiences as well.
that's actually a really nice story. Yeah, I think when we are ready, universe will lead us where we need to be. Yeah, we just need
Perfectly
to
said.
hear and understand.
Exactly. Perfectly said that it's, when we're there, when we're ready, the
Yeah,
universe will actually direct what needs to happen. We just need to
yeah,
acknowledge that. We need to recognize that,
yeah.
and sort of go there with it.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was a little bit scary for you, right? To start trying different things, like, oh.
Well, I told her, I thought you had me confused with someone else. And I just saw her smile, as I said that. And yeah, I was very nervous, and I was like, wait a second, me? Is that
Hmm.
really true? And then I was like, uh-oh. And then I was like, well,
Eh,
no, she's bright. She,
Yeah.
if it is me she means, there must be a reason.
Yes.
And so that helped me kind of sit and hold the fear, until it,
Hmm.
it quieted down too. But like you were saying so well a few minutes ago, we do need to feel those things. We need to feel the feelings.
Yeah.
Um, and a quote I love to share with clients, Marcus Aurelius had said, the obstacle is the way.
Hmm.
Right? We're actually
Yes.
wired to move away from things that feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like if we think about physical pain, what we do is we flinch away from it
Hmm.
first, and then we look to see, like, what's going on? What was that? And we do the same thing emotionally.
Hmm.
And so if we turn towards and lean in, allow ourselves to just kind of be present with those
Yes.
emotions, they start to move, they start to evolve, and they start to dissipate for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And we could see the changes that are happening in our lives as well. No.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely. It's not just internal, right? That it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
It actually, there's that, it pours outward into our
Hmm.
lives as well.
Yeah. That's I love it. Yes.
Me too.
So, what were the toughest moment during that transition time, like in your career and in your personal life, and who supported you?
It felt to me like, and this is so on point with just the theme for why you have your podcast. It felt to me like I didn't really have anyone to talk to or
Hmm.
figure some of the things out, in terms of the methodology and practical pieces of integrating. It felt really uncomfortable, that
Hmm.
I, like, who am I going to talk to? No one else is doing things in this way. Um, but it gave me an opportunity, right? There's that word again,
Hmm.
to notice the support that I did have, and to notice the information that I did have when it felt like I didn't know
Hmm.
what I was doing. And so it helped me kind of rewrite that story, and it's very entertaining to think about. We're kind of chuckling where
Hmm.
it's like, of course, you know what you're talking about. It just because it's unfamiliar or in this way, it hasn't
Yes.
kind of come together before, doesn't mean you don't have what you need.
Yes. Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
very lucky, and I'm very grateful, that I had some incredible friends, and I had colleagues in both directions,
Hmm.
that helped me feel like I could just kind of reach into myself and
Hmm.
figure out what I wanted to, what I needed to. So I'm going to say it was, I'm thinking about the question of, like, who supported me. It was the version of myself
Hmm.
that was ready for growth, and also that had learned it's not only okay, but so precious to accept support and help. Like, I get
Oh,
to have
yes.
that too.
Yeah, because we can do everything by ourselves, right? We can figure out everything by
Absolutely.
ourselves. And accept and help can be challenging and difficult. But I think once we learn to accept help and ask for help or an opinion or just suggestion, recommendation, I think this is what also gives us opportunities to learn and hear other stories, other, as I said, suggestions, recommendations. But we're not, oh, okay, so I can probably do that. And just talking about it. Yes, it's a different energy
Yes,
again, right? So it's
absolutely.
everything unfolds for us. Yeah.
It is a different energy, and we show up differently with it, right? Our nervous
Yes.
system settles in, and that's actually where we're most. It's hard to be connected to ourselves, our world, and others when we're in that more survival state, in that I got to
Yes.
make it happen kind of mode, right? There's sort of this frenzy and panic, but
Yes.
as we sort of settle into this other kind of open state, that the emotional awareness, the empathy we have for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, for others, our brain actually kind of shifts gears, and
Yes.
we start to rewire ourselves for safety. And so in that safe space, in that safe state, it's why we talk about creating safe
Mm-hmm.
spaces,
Mm-hmm.
is where we can have those deeper social connectedness moments in both directions, right? Where
Yes.
we're able to
Yes.
offer that to others. But my goodness, what a gift to receive that too, to allow
Yes.
ourselves to receive that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a gift. Yes. It is a very beautiful and powerful gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sally, how do you think, to your opinion, how can someone begin to trust joy after the loss?
Oh, what a beautiful question. We often think of joy, and I think this is true of happiness. We often think of it as it has to be turned on at 100%,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not feasible for any of our emotions. So,
Mm-hmm.
giving ourselves trust that I can feel joy in these increments, maybe in these bite sized pieces. And
Yes.
it doesn't mean there aren't also loving feelings, that there isn't also, a wish for sharing,
Mm-hmm.
this joy with my loved one. Or with the version of me that is grieving, I should
Mm-hmm.
say. It just means that this is here now. And I think also just reminding ourselves that joy serves a function too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Joy helps us stay anchored, it helps us stay connected,
Yes.
and it helps us remember how to live. um,
Yes.
so I would say allow yourself to have the bite-sized pieces with it.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself the room and space to experience it alongside other things. And also just keep in mind that it too is a guide, right? For your
Hmm.
healing, for your unfoldment, for your
Yes.
growth, and for reconnecting back into your life as well.
Yeah. Oh, that I love it. That it's small pieces, then it can actually increase more and more by allowing
Yes.
yourself to experience the joy in little things and acknowledge and be present in a moment when acknowledging those things like joy can lead to it helps to anchor, right? Helps us to
Absolutely.
feel connected to ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, and to our lives as well, and so it can actually feel heavy in those
Mm-hmm.
bigger bites at that hundred
Yes.
percent level.
Yes.
So I think just kind of remembering that it can feel like I can just sort of feel what I
Yes.
need to,
Feel.
right? Much like
Yes.
a meal or a snack, I don't have to eat the entire buffet just because it's here. Right? I can just have what feels good for me right now, and what I
Yes.
need, and what I
Yeah.
can kind of tolerate right now.
Yes. Oh, I love the example with the buffet. I
Thank
really
you.
like it. Yes, it's actually so true because sometimes we feel like, especially people when they go to the buffet or like all inclusive resort, they like to say, and we just want, I guess, consume everything. But it's not,
Yes.
we physically cannot do that. But
No.
what we can do, we can enjoy the variety and just have, I usually like to give an example how to start knowing what I want and enjoy my food, like what I want
Mhm.
to eat right now, what I want to drink. Do I want to drink coffee and tea and just enjoy that coffee or tea or even a glass of water instead of just swallowing the food? And I think that would bring the joy to our lives as well, instead of, you know,
A beautiful comparison and description with that. It is an opportunity to rediscover, like, how do I actually feel joy? How do I like, whatever item I'm
hmm
sampling here, and and
yeah,
and just sort of discovering, like, how do I relate to this? And one
yes,
of the ways is being present with it, right? Being
hmm
kind of in it, um, and sort of allowing ourselves to have that, to be with it, and to feel rather than just
yes, to
kind of go
feel,
through the
yeah,
motion,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, feeling, I think that learning to feel and accept the feelings, it's one of the keys to feel connected with
Yes.
yourself. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that statement, and I describe it sometimes with clients as, like, that's kind of how we bottle things up for
hmm
ourselves, right? Is we're present with it, we feel it. And the moment to moment shifts that come with feeling things remind us that we can feel things. And it
Yes.
actually it helps to rebuild trust in our capabilities to hold
Yes.
emotions and to
Yeah.
kind of be able to live.
Thank you for sharing your story and your ways of combining and taking an integrative approach in healing. And I think, as you mentioned, the opportunity, the loss, life challenges, and obstacles gives us opportunities to grow, to feel self love, and to love ourselves, but also gives us joy and a way to live our life happier. What would be your encouraging, your legacy message to the listeners?
As we've been talking a little bit about the experience of joy, um, that would sort of be the wish I have as sort of a legacy message.
Mm-hmm.
These small, bite-sized, consistent moments of honoring ourselves do so much more to rewire ourselves than these bigger, gestures, um, here and there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, sort of an invitation here that as you experience shifts and losses within your life, whether it's losses of loved ones, or aspects of yourself, lean in a little bit further. Just those small, tiny pieces of consistent, bite sized moments of honoring what you're experiencing, that'll
Mm-hmm.
help you kind of grow into and unfold. And it doesn't mean that you didn't love what we're
Yes.
grieving. And
Yes.
it doesn't mean that you'll be stuck in the pain. But what it can be is an invitation to grow through and grow into yourself much more deeply.
Yes, yes. Thank you. It's a very beautiful legacy message. Thank you, Sally,
Thank you.
very much. Thank you for being on today's podcast. And you can find more information and connect with Sally by following the links below this episode. I just want to thank you one more time for being with us today. And listeners, if you feel overwhelmed with constant challenges and pressure, download my 3 favorite techniques how to boost calmness and stay present in the moment below this episode as well. And I wish you, Sally, the best of luck and growing and achieving your dreams.
Thank
Uh,
you. It was
oh,
such a joy. I have to thank you so much. I really loved the opportunity to kind of dive into these conversations together. Thank you.
thank you. Yes, thank you. And please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another powerful story. And remember, no matter how tough things get, you are not alone.